Evening, gentlemen. Lovely to have you with us today. So, Mr. Murthy, if I may start with you. Now, the story of a few friends coming together and starting something exceptional. For you, it's almost 40 years since you started Infosys. This is a 25-year journey. Not too dissimilar journeys. What was it that kept you together as a team? What, through the hard times, through the challenges, the people made it happen? Now, what was it? What was the secret ingredient of that team that worked together?
Well, there were two important attributes that contributed to the longevity of our relationship. First was complementary strengths. When we put together the team, we made sure that we had a mutually exclusive but collectively exhaustive set of skills, expertise, and experience. People who knew sales, people who knew finance, people who knew software development, people who knew human resources, etc. And in every discussion, while each of us had the freedom to express our opinion, by and large, the person who was an expert in that area would have the last say as long as he has used the ideas of others. That was one thing. The second thing that kept us all together was our common enduring value system. We all came from middle class. Therefore, we are quite used to austerity, we are quite used to simplicity, we were quite used to being thrifty. We put the interest of the company ahead of our personal interests in everything that we did. Of course, there were the normal values, what we call C life, customer focus, leadership by example, integrity and transparency, fairness in every transaction with everybody, and excellence in everything that we do. I think once we followed these things, once we ensured that everybody followed it on a voluntary basis, it was very easy to celebrate each other's success. And once you start celebrating each other's success, then it becomes very easy because you generate a lot of goodwill. That I would say these are some of the things that we did.
And Mr. Murthy, would that have just come through practice, trial and error, or was there a discussion saying that this is how we'll go for the first few years, let's get to the next stage?
Well, when we founded the company, I invited all my younger colleagues. They're all younger to me by about 10 years. I was the oldest of the lot, except for one of my colleagues. And I invited them to my small single bedroom apartment in Bandra West. And we had a long discussion on what the objective of the company should be. One person said we must be the company with the largest software sales revenue. The second person said we must be the company that is most profitable amongst all software companies. The third person said we must be the company with the highest market capitalization. Finally, when it came to me, I said, why don't we say we would be the most respected software company in India? And the good thing with seeking respect from stakeholders was you will get very good quality customers if you seek respect from customers. If you seek respect from prospective employees, good people will join you. If you seek respect from investors, good investors will come and stay along with you. If you seek respect from vendor partners, they will come to your aid in the hour of your need. If you seek respect from bureaucrats, they will frame policies that are good for the industry, and they will listen to you in framing those policies. And finally, if you seek respect from the society, that is the best thing that can happen. So that's how we did.
Wonderful. But just before I move on to Sunil, just a question. You know, some of the young people here might not have been aware of the challenges. You're needing a license to even import one computer component. Mr. Murthy, just to close with you, having such significant challenges and roadblocks to growing your company, how did you manage to nurture the big dream still? You talked about wanting respect, but having the big dream, but having to deal with the little things like licenses and just approvals. How did you manage to nurture that big dream?
Well, when you have a dream larger than life, when you have a vision that is asymptotic, that brings enormous enthusiasm and energy to you. I think here are some great people, so I don't need to say that because they have all exhibited in action. It is the power of the vision, it is the power of that larger than life objective that sustains you during the years and moments of your difficulty. As long as each person supports the other people when we have difficulty, as long as we say, look, we are all together, we will overcome this. After all, this is a challenge that makes us stronger, that makes us, in fact, able to face even bigger challenges. Then that gives you confidence, that gives you enthusiasm, and that gives you energy. So therefore, each of us, the team members, again, Rahul has, I'm sure, has experienced it a lot more time than I have, because when the team is down, it is the responsibility of each member of the team to raise the confidence and enthusiasm and energy levels of the rest of the people. Once you do that, you can actually do extraordinary things.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Murthy. Sunil, if I may come to you, young boy started playing football to now captain of India. Can you tell us a little bit about that journey and the dreams you nurtured when you were a young man 25 years ago?
What happened to our deal where I told you I'm not going to speak, just listen to these legends? What happened to that deal?
That deal's off. So.
When I was told that I have to come over here, I thought, great opportunity. I will listen, take out my diary, write notes, go back. I'm already the odd man out here. I truly believe this. I'm the odd man out here. This is... Go on, ask me.
I'm here as well. So.
All right, yeah.
Go
on, ask me.
So I guess the question is, as a young boy, what were the dreams and how did you nurture them, knowing that football wasn't in a particularly great way 25 years ago? Even being the captain of India, it might have been a nice dream to have, but it may not have seemed such a great dream at a functional level. How did you keep going through those difficult years? I mean, football is still evolving. Having that talent, how did you keep going?
I think at that age, I did not know that I had the talent to be the national team's captain.
Of course. Yeah.
I never thought I'm going to play for the country, leave alone, be the captain. I just played because I loved it. And whenever I'm in doubt, even now, when I feel any pressure, I tell myself, whatever you have got is bonus. Play because you love it. The day I don't play because I love it and I take pressure, I always do bad. And whenever I get back to the point that I play because I love it, everything goes out. So when I was starting playing, I never ever thought that I'm going to be, forget about India's captain. I never thought I'm going to be a professional player. I did not have much knowledge then as to how you can take this to a professional level, whether you're going to make money or not. My dream was to get a national team certificate so that I can get to St. Stephen's in Delhi. That was my dream then. I was not a very studious student. I got some 60-70% in class 12, so I knew to get into a very cool college then, I needed to play India. I played under 17 India, and that was it. That was my dream. If somebody would have told me, here is a pen and paper, write what you want in the next 15 years, I wouldn't have been able to write actually what I've achieved. I'm living a dream, so this dream I never dreamt of.
Sick. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the person with the second most international goals in the world. So it's Cristiano Ronaldo and then Sunil Chettri.
Yeah, guys, think about it. In 5 seconds, forget about it. There is no comparison. You all know that.
Well, I'm the one asking the question, so I can put in these statistics. But Sunil, you've played for many different teams in India, abroad, national teams, club teams. What distinguishes the great teams from the sort of also-rans, the environments that...
I think there are many reasons, but if you want to ask me one reason, if everyone understands which way we are going, because it's a team sport, the chances of you winning is more than you losing. Sometimes the way might not be the right way, but if everyone is focused in one way, you will achieve things. Because sometimes in a team sport, you don't like what the coach says, you don't like the captain's attitude, many of them don't like my attitude, you don't like the way we went forward with a set piece, a lot of things, because a team sport, there are a lot of minds working on it. But till the time you are focused that this is the goal, I may not like it, but I'll give everything to the team's thing, the chance of succeeding is more. So in my long career, I've realized this, that you just got to trust the process. You have to understand what the coach wants. You like him, you don't like him, deal with it. But the whole team is going to go towards one goal, and we all are going to put our best foot forward. The sync between the coach, the system, and the players is what gives you result.
And coming to that, like as captain, it's a very different thing being a captain of a cricket team versus captain of a football team. And,
Why?
I mean, you're not making strategic plays along the way in the same way, right? You're working with many players at the same time.
Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, in the sense that, I don't know, I mean, I guess in cricket you have to make a lot more decisions. As a football captain, yes, I'm sure you are making decisions. I haven't played football that well, but probably dealing with a little more difficult characters maybe in football.
Exactly. The question still
I'm doing
remains,
your job, guys. See ya.
what were the skills you used? And in particular, Mr. Murthy talks about when sort of spirits drop, heads drop. Is that the key role? Pushing everyone in the same direction? There's not that much time to do strategic thinking on a football field, I would imagine.
Yeah, the difference between cricket and football now, because the coach is the main guy. He makes the plan. And as a captain, when things go wrong, I tend to go back to the drawing board and be a good example. Because the first thing a person does when you lose a game is to blame others. With my experience of losing a lot of games, I've understood, first blame yourself. And once you do the right things, automatically everyone follows. When as a captain you do the right things, and right things means very small things, coming right on time, eating the right food, sleeping at the right time, doing extra training after your training is done, just speaking good things to people, because when you lose, you want to abuse. But being nice and saying nicer things to your colleague, all these small things adds up to the bigger goal, and then everyone follows. Rather than giving lectures, because no sports person likes lectures, especially from the captains. It's the worst thing. I've understood this. The one thing that I've learned as a captain is when to shut up, not when to speak. No, that's very important. No one likes lectures. But if I, as a captain, if I'm doing the right things, in terms of coming to the training right, doing the right things, listening to the coach, and being positive, everyone follows.
Rahul Dravid, captain of India, smiling a little bit too much there with some of the
Different
comments.
sports.
No, yeah, I mean, the common theme is probably not everyone likes you, so that's pretty common. That's probably a given.
Rahul, so
Being on time, though, is not necessarily a very prerequisite of a lot of successful Indian captains. It's kind of...
Mr. Perfect was not on time.
not necessary.
But so 1994 was challenging times for Rahul Dravid, right? Young man trying to make his test debut, playing a lot of domestic cricket. What would the coach Rahul Dravid of today tell the Rahul Dravid of 1994 if you had the sort of the opportunity?
I would look. I think looking back on sort of, if I have to look back in so the early part of my journey and sort of getting into the. So I got into the Karnataka team as a 17, 18-year-old boy and spent about 4 or 5 years in domestic cricket before I got in '96. Look, I think one of the things that I think that drives a lot of sportsmen and drives a lot of us is a certain amount of passion, a hunger, a desire, an ambition, right? You want to be the best and you want to achieve the best and you want to give it everything you've got and you want to leave no stone unturned, and I was no different, right? I just wanted to do everything. But if I were to look back on it, and so it's some of the advice I give some of the young boys, now coming through, and I work with some of them in similar stages in their careers now with the India A team or the under-19 team, and they're all sort of aspiring to play for India, is I think one of the important things is to also learn to relax and enjoy it, and to realize when some of these things can actually be a deterrent rather than actually something that can help you. I mean, we all want to do well, and I think that's what differentiates a lot of very, very good sportsmen, the ambition and the desire, like I said. But there are times when I think that can actually become something that can hold you back. You know, it can makes you more tense, it makes you more nervous at times. You can almost try too hard. And if I were to look back on some of that, I probably would be telling myself to maybe relax a little bit more, enjoy it a little bit more. Maybe I might not have succeeded then, but I don't know. But it's you know, I think it's very, very important to understand that balance needs to be met. And I see a lot of that in a lot of the young players today. There's a lot of frustration at times, and that leads to a lot of issues both on and off the field. They're all trying to compete. It's become a tough world. Everyone's competing with each other. They're looking at sports. They're almost you're sort of, rather than competing with yourself, you're almost looking at other people and what other people are doing. So I think sometimes good advice is something that probably I would tell myself is that rather looking at other people, look at yourself, and it's your own journey that you need to be aware about and worry about. Sometimes you'll be ahead, sometimes you'll be behind. But in the end, the journey is yours, and the only competition is really with yourself. And I think that's the best thing that you can achieve, is to try to be the best version of yourself. And I guess at times, there were times when I probably was too intense. I was too intense as a young boy, and probably it was a strength at some stage, but there were times when I think it ended up being a bit of a weakness for me and held me back. So I think finding that balance is something that's very, very critical.
And Rahul, we've talked a lot about what Mr. Murthy talked about, which is the notion of being there for the team, putting into the pot, taking it out a little bit. Could you share a little bit of that? Because I always find that a fascinating story in terms of the role you have as an individual in a team environment. I mean, cricket is a team sport, but a lot of the activities are individual. But beyond the skills that you bring, you can also, as a person, I think, contribute to a team environment.
Yeah, I think both Mr. Murthy and Sunil put it really well, in the sense Mr. Murthy used the thing of enjoying each other's success. I think that's a very, very important thing. Sunil spoke about leadership by example. I mean, he speaks about leadership by example. So, that's something, I think creating a really good team environment is something that's special. In fact, I was just telling Vijita the other day that I don't miss a lot about playing cricket. I don't miss playing cricket at all, actually. I don't miss playing bouncers anymore. I don't want to play that anymore. I've had enough of that. But what I do miss is just that camaraderie, the friendship sometimes, just that feeling of being in a dressing room after you've won or even lost a game at times, and you're just hanging around a dressing room and your kids all over the place, and like there's 7, 8 of you or 10 of you just sitting and debrief, or just sort of looking over the game. And obviously it's much nicer when you won it, but just those conversations and creating that good vibe is something that is special. When you're part of something like that and you're part of a special team, it's something that you will always remember. And I don't remember a lot of my stats, so I don't remember a lot of things, but I do remember some of those special moments, and in dressing rooms or in team hotels, or just those moments is something that you remember. So it's all the more important that when you're part of a team, or you're part of a team like that you contribute into that team. There's not always times when you're going to be successful or you're going to have success. But if you've created a good team environment, and like the example I try and give some of the boys is that, we've got a pot of energy in the team, and we all have to give into that pot. And when that pot grows, there are times in the team when 15 of you, some people are taking from that pot because they need, they're having a bad tour, or they're not doing particularly well, they need some support. If you've created a good team environment, people get that support. But equally, I mean, when you need that support, if you've helped nurture that environment, like Sunil said, or like Mr. Murthy said, creating and nurturing that team environment is very, very critical. And it's not an easy thing to do. I mean, I think sometimes the default for us, it's a simple thing, like in a team environment in cricket, for example, you're playing with different people from different states, different languages, different food habits. The easiest thing is for us, you walk down to breakfast, and you see 2 people from your own state team or people you're comfortable with, and you just walk to the breakfast table and sit with them. Most simple thing to do, most easiest thing to do, makes you feel good, makes you feel comfortable. But I always tell people, encourage some of our younger players, is go to the table where you don't know someone, where you can actually learn about someone, or someone who's not from your state, or someone who's not from your zone, and get to know him, get to know each other. And that's adding energy to the pot, or that's creating that environment in which someday you may need to cash in on. So I think small things like that. I think being part of good teams is not easy. Like Sunil said, it means people sometimes asking more of themselves, and then is easy to do.
Thank you, Rahul. Gopi, looking back on this journey, one of the early trainees of PPBA, talk to us about the start. How did you sign up? What was it like? What were the first few months and years like at PPBA?
I think the first few years were amazing. I think initially we used to play at the Canara Union Prakash courts, and Prakash sir would come, and I and Dipankar used to live behind there, and we used to. It was none of this kind of a setup, right? So it was like 3 courts. Prakash sir would come, we would train, and then we would be eating in one of those darshanis and stuff, and we would stay behind. This was 93 end, October, November. That's when Prakash sir used to come. Before that, I never knew what it was to get tired on court. Prakash sir made me really tired on court, and I would be the one who would just play a few strokes, be aggressive about it, but I didn't have an overall game, and I really knew how it felt like if your really legs were tired, and if you would not let me finish a rally, and then I would be dying to do that. So myself and Dipankar used to be that initial years. I went back, went on to play the national games, and then I got injured. I had an ACL tear at the national games. And then I came back again almost a year later. By then, the Prakash courts, we moved to the KBA setup and then it was, initial years were great, and I think Vimal, Prakash sir, I think the entire family, it was more like a family. I still remember those initial, we used to have a bus, Bidu sir used to be there, go to Kantirwa Stadium in the morning, 5 o'clock used to be training, we would be get ready at 4:45 to start off, and then train, come back again, breakfast, Baisab was here, we would have food there. Every now and then we would have Ujjwala madam come to check us, so we would ensure that all the clothes and the shoes were hiding somewhere. We would have a shouting from her. We'd do that. Those and
So truly like a family.
It was like, yeah, it was difficult. Like shuttles, we would have Vimal going around the shuttle looking and saying, no, this is all right, you go back and play. we had tough times, and but it was really enjoyable because I think the fact that when we started off, the challenges today when we look at is very different, and Prakash sir knows it, and he's built on that. So when we started, it was like shuttles were a problem, in the sense courts were a problem, and to actually have these fundamental things in place was huge. And good food at the academy, clean place, clean training place. I think these were big things which were a huge improvement from where I started. And I remember what Sunil was saying about the dream. We used to have Vivek and Shashi and Shama Kitur. They were all players who would be from the Karnataka team, and I remember the Chennai Nationals, Madras Nationals then. I think the Karnataka team was somewhere there, and Andhra team never would even get to beat them. So that's where we were. So for me, I think the dream was, it's much bigger of a dream to even become a South Zone or a national champion. So I think the difference was huge. So for me to actually play the sport and get this far is something else which is unbelievable. But the initial years were like a startup. And what Narayana Murthy sir said about a 1-bedroom, it was like that. It was those small times when everything was a family. Everything was 3-4 people. And the bus, the training at Kantirwa, Cubbon Park, running, and then Balachandran. And it was all like family, and I think we would have dinners at Prakash sir's house. So it was very, very nice.
Lots of nostalgia. Thank you for sharing that, Gopi. Gopi, a question that comes up often, you've had injuries at extremely critical times in your career, right? And I think we've had discussions on this in the past as well. Of those times when you are injured, and I think this is just for the younger players here, how do you use that time effectively and don't allow your mind to sort of digress and stay focused on a goal when even the rehab period may not be well known to you? It could be months, it could be weeks, but keeping focus when you're down and out, which you've done multiple times, ACL, multiple different injuries, which also eventually led to you ending your career, right? If I'm not wrong. How did you use those times?
I know it'd be 94 I had a ACL, and 96 I had another surgery, 98 I had another surgery, and 2002 I had another surgery. So every time I came up and went down, it was almost like. But the thing
and managed an All England in between. So
yeah. So for me, the thing was, I was almost like, it was very easy to kind of shift to doubles. It was easy to play a toss and drop game and not jump and dive, which was my natural instinct. And to actually try to play a game which was softer and easy on the body kind of a thing. And then one day I just didn't enjoy it. In 95, 96, I remember one day I just didn't enjoy playing that game. And I just went back and I said, I'm going to jump tomorrow morning, and if I fall, I'm going to be ready for surgery day after. And that was important. I think to be able to say, it's okay to fall again, and I will get up again. Let me see whether the injury was bigger or I was bigger. And that was a very raw kind of aggression which I had, which I almost put it as a challenge to myself. But to be honest, many people have said this, had you not got the injuries, probably you would have been much better. But to be honest, I just feel, thanks to the injuries, I am what I am. Because without them, I would have probably not achieved what I've achieved. So for me, it was very important. It taught me what I loved about the sport. At 19 and 20, when you're growing, people don't really know what the sport is. And for me, the injuries taught me what I loved about the sport. And for me, that single thing was very important. And even today, as a coach, I think those moments made me reflect, made me think about things which you can do on bed, things which you can do off and not being on the badminton court. And those things were very critical in my growing up as a player. And that were very important.
Wonderful. Thank you, Gopi. Prakash sir, a few days ago we were talking about just PPBA, the journey, and you mentioned one thing. You said that for many years you followed the Infosys journey and Mr. Murthy. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, Mr. Murthy has had a big influence on my life. He's been my role model. He's been my idol. I've tried to follow him. Of course, there have been role models on the court. But off the court, I've always tried to follow, each of his interviews. The values which he has, the company which he built, from nowhere. So when I started PPB, I wanted it to be like Infosys. Of course, we are nowhere near there, but the idea was always, to build an institution, not just a coaching place. Because, in sports, generally it is just one coach or one person. But right from the beginning, we were very clear that we wanted to build an institution so that it lasts even for many years to come. So I'm extremely happy that we've completed 25 years. We never expected when we started it way back in '94 that we'll come this long, because it was a big experiment which we were doing at that time. We were doing the job of a national federation. What the national federations were supposed to do. Since they were not doing it, we had to do it privately. and we didn't get any support. We had a lot of issues with the federation at that time. Most of the Asian countries, they were all, most of the players were trained in the national camps. So whereas, there was no such thing here in India. And to excel at the international level, it was important that, we trained throughout the year. It was, no longer, you could train for 2 weeks and go back and, come after 6 months. So I think it's been a very satisfying journey. And I think I must thank Mr. Murthy and Infosys. They've been the inspiration in my life, at least.
During your welcome address, you talked about a steep learning curve, learning by doing and trial and error and other things. But when you look back now on your journey, what are the 2 or 3 things that you think from what your insights which would be interesting to an audience having built this institution and looking forward as well?
Well, I think it was, like Gopi mentioned, we started, there was nothing to, for us to, because this was the first one of its kind. So there was nothing which we could follow. So it was more a trial and error. It was the same. It was the same in my playing career as well. You try something. If it worked, then you keep it. If it doesn't work, then you carry on and try something different. So it was the same in my playing career, and we had to do the same thing here. We were not sure. We had limited funds. Like Gopi mentioned, when we started, we could just provide coaching. Because we had limited funds. And like he said, they used to stay in a room just behind, so they had to make their own arrangements for stay. They had to pay for their own food for the first 6 months or 1 year. Then we suddenly realized the amount of training they were doing, and they were having darshini food. So all the effort which we were, we realized that we need to give good food. So then every time we had an issue, we went back to the sponsors. BPL were kind enough. So they would keep increasing the amount, and whatever funds we got, we would, spend on the players. Then, again, we went in, we had to travel to Kantirava Stadium. About 15, 20 of them were there. So we requested for a van. So they gave us a van. So it's been, a trial and error. And so we've learned over a period of time. And, like I said, we've tried to to commit whatever was possible, and wherever we made mistakes, we've tried to learn from that and try to put processes in place.
Wonderful. Mr. Murthy, if I may come back to you. Now, sport career is not that different from entrepreneurship. And when you look at young people, they are using their bodies, that's their capital, dealing with lots of risks. As someone who's had such a successful relationship with risk and an entrepreneurial journey like yours, what advice might you have to young people considering these careers in sport, which are high risk, potentially high reward, with many, many challenges along the way?
Well, you're right. There's a lot of similarities between entrepreneurship and being a sports person. Speed is extremely important. When the shuttle is coming from the other side, Prakash or Gopi has to move to the right place in the court. They have to take the right decision in which direction to hit. All of that has to happen. Similarly, when Rahul is facing Glenn McGrath or somebody, then he has to take the decision in a jiffy. So speed is common between the two. Then openness to new ideas is extremely important. That the ability to learn from your competitors or your opponents is extremely important to succeed, to become even a better sports person, or even to become a better entrepreneur, etc. So there are a lot of similarities between being a sports person and an entrepreneur. Now, to have a higher probability of success in these endeavors, I would say, like in any other area, whether you want to be a very successful doctor, whether you want to be a very successful film actor, whether you want to be a very successful entrepreneur, you have to have passion. That's what all these people have demonstrated. Second, you must be disciplined. There is no shortcut to being disciplined. You must have high aspirations. And you must have a good work ethic. And you must be an honest person. Honest person because you have to be true to yourself. You have to realize, I screwed up this game because of X, Y, Z. Therefore, I'm going to learn from it and I'm going to correct myself next with the other members of the team next time. In other words, I would say that these are some of the most important aspects that an entrepreneur or a sports person should endeavor to cultivate. And all these people have demonstrated.
And just to conclude, what role do you think sports can play for India at a larger level?
Well, the first responsibility that any Indian has is to bring up the image of the country, is to bring joy to the people around you, is to conduct yourself as an honest and a fair citizen. I think sports person play an important role because I tell you, I was in England, in London in 1980 after Prakash won the All England. And I was at a restaurant and somebody came. He too must have been obviously one of the players or something. And then he congratulated me. I didn't understand why he was. I did almost. Then he said, look, congratulations, your compatriot, an Indian has won the All England stuff. So remember the kind of value addition that Prakash did at that point in time. Similarly in cricket, today there is so much respect for India in the global arena. Because at the end of the day, performance leads to recognition, recognition leads to respect, and respect leads to power. Therefore, if India has to become a powerful nation, I'm using it not in a pejorative way, but in a good way, then all these wonderful ambassadors of India in whatever field they participate in, they have to perform and raise the image of India. So they do a very important job of raising the image of India. So that's why I think we should all be very, very grateful to all these wonderful people.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Sunil, if I may come to you. You've been quite an outspoken advocate when you felt like the fans weren't coming in. You put up a video and brought people to the stadiums and packed the stadiums. Do you feel like you have a power, a responsibility? How does that sit on your shoulders?
I don't think so. Otherwise, I won't be able to sleep. When I made that video, to be very honest, I wasn't thinking anything. I didn't had any idea what it's going to be like. After the video, I had no clue what the kind of euphoria is going to bring out. I was just saying what I thought, what I felt that day, that specific day. The day before that tweet, we played against Chinese Taipei in Mumbai. And generally, the ISL gets a lot of fans for all different clubs in the ISL. And now we're playing for the country, and I thought everyone is going to come. Just a 12,000 seater in Mumbai. And I think the young boys like Anirudh Thapa, Udanta, they played really well. I think we won the game 4-1. And these young boys who were coming to the national team did really, really well. And they were all rejoicing, they were very happy, and I thought there were only 2,000 people there at the stadium, wherein all the ISL clubs, they get huge number of fans. And that is the reason why the next day I was probably late at breakfast, so I didn't eat well, I don't know what I did. I made that video, and generally nowadays when you make a video, you have to go to a PR team, tell them, they correct the mistakes, because you can do a full stop, a comma, or I don't know what, they'll check and they'll come back to you, yeah, you can post now at 10 o'clock, prime time, 7 o'clock, I don't know. All these things go on. I didn't ask them because I knew they'll tell me not to. And I just posted it. We went to training, and when I came back, my phone was off because of the message and everything. But today, I do not regret it. A lot of people told me, few of them told me that you shouldn't have pleaded or begged as a national captain. I have no regrets. Because I think the fourth day when we played Kenya, the stadium was jam-packed. There were people who were, thank you. I think there were people who came by train from Northeast, from Kerala, from everywhere to just watch that game. And it was a very satisfying feeling. It didn't change everything in one day, but it was a great start. And now when I see people talk about football, when you lose a game, people have opinions. And now before, the opinions were just with the 4 members. Now it's out and everywhere. And they're entitled to say whatever they want, minus abuses. It's nice. It's nice because people are talking about sports. Badminton is huge in our country now. Wrestling is superb. Me and my family, we watch kabaddi every time. It's an outstanding sport. So eventually you want to see a country, we are 1.3 billion people, maybe more, certainly more. We can definitely have so many different sports do well. Because for me, with my limited knowledge, sports is what makes you a very, very good human being. I would have lost my track as a young boy. Because I played, I become a better human being. Fact. So whenever I go to meet kids, I always tell them, no matter what you want to become, you go and become whoever you want, but play sport. Any sports. Just play. It is going to make you better, and that's a fact.
Wonderful, sir. Rahul, you've seen success in many different avatars. You've experienced joys, your individual performances, your team performances. Now as coach, the team that you're coaching, can you sort of distinguish and differentiate the different types of joys you've had through those careers? Are they different? Are they sort of similar in the way you feel personal pride versus being part of a team?
Well, I think the greatest successes, like I probably said earlier, are successes you share with the team. And that's, I guess the beauty that maybe, I guess, me and Sunil share of always being part of being part of a team and being able to share that success and that sorrow with with your teammates. And I think those are the things that you truly really remember. Of course, I mean, when you do achieve things individually, and cricket gives you that opportunity, say, slightly unlike football, though I mean, I guess there's an individual element to football as well. But there is a lot of personal pride and satisfaction as well when you do achieve things individually, and when you're able to achieve certain things in difficult conditions or to help your team win. There's a lot of personal pride in just seeing improvement. I mean, just seeing yourself grow as a player or as a person and seeing, hey, I couldn't do this 3 years ago, but today I'm able to do this. It's obviously taken a journey. It's taken hours of practice. It's taken a lot of dedication to be able to achieve and learn new skills. And when you achieve that, there is a lot of personal pride and there's a lot of satisfaction. But I think the greatest joys were always ones that when you won as a team or when you shared as your team. And I think the great, the privilege that we got. I mean, I just did something that I love doing. I never thought of, I never thought of it like that. But, the way you were able to influence other people by being able to play a sport, and, everyone here on this panel, you just by having some success on a cricket field or doing something that I loved and achieving success, it made so many other people happy. I think that was something that, a lot of times, felt really good. I mean, just to see the joy on people's faces. I mean, you sit on a team bus and you sort of, I've always open up the windows and you know, it's sort of the curtains on the team bus, and you looked outside and there'd be these young kids running aside on the side of the bus, or they'd be on their cycles and on the motorbikes sometimes, which is quite dangerous and frightening. You know, they're following you, and just the joy and the smile on their face, or they're, you know, giving you the thumbs up, or I think those are kind of things that, you know, and you think, wow, I'm just playing a sport and I'm able to make someone happy. I didn't think about it that way, and I think that's something that I guess is really special, and you know, I feel really grateful for you know, being able to sort of play the sport and to be able to play it at a level where I could just through my own performances make other people happy. You know, I think that made me feel really good. I mean, and you know, I think like you know, you see what Mr. Murthy and what people like Infosys have done. I mean, it's you know, it's phenomenal. I never thought of sport as something that I kind of never took sport that seriously, and I never thought that we you know, we could equate to what people like Mr. Murthy and you know, what the software industry has done for India. I mean, any one of these people will say, when we go abroad, I mean, any one of them will always say, hey, you know, you're from Infosys, or you're from, you know, and the number of people and the number of, you know, the engineers, the number of Indians who are abroad today, who are jobs and who have great lives because of what people like Mr. Murthy and the software industry has done in India, is absolutely phenomenal. I mean, that's really nation building. I mean, I never saw sport as, I just saw it as, yeah, okay, I did something great and, you know, people got some joy and some happiness for a while. They didn't necessarily put food on the table. These guys, you know, did the serious job.
And I think Mr. Muthi's analytics are good. He identified Glenn McGrath as the bowler you would bat against.
Yeah, I know.
You're
It just made me shiver a little bit. Not a pleasant feeling of thinking of having to play him again.
So when you asked Rahul who's the toughest bowler, it was in fact Mr. Glenn McGrath. But Gopi, coming to you, you've seen as a young player where badminton has reached today. Could you talk us through that transformation? What is in the mind of young players today going out to the Olympics, not just as contenders but as medal hopefuls?
I think it's not only about badminton. I think it's also about New India. For me, I remember having gone to the Olympics in 2000, and to be fair, 90% of the team didn't believe that they had a chance to win a medal. And all of us were very happy, clicking pictures, collecting souvenirs. Being part of the Olympics was a big thing. And then all of us wanted to be part of the inaugural closing ceremony, or most of us in the team. We fast forward that to, say, these 2016 games. And although we won only 2 medals, 90% of the team, I would fairly say, that went there wanting to perform and win at the games. And that is truly the confidence of young India as well. That's something which is very evident in that. And not any of them were interested in the other things around the games. To the point that I remember in 2020, people would ask, can we stay 2 days longer? That would be the request of most of the members of the team.
In 2000?
In 2000. And in 2016, the closing ceremony didn't have enough people and only officials were left. So that is how people didn't want to stay there once they had lost. They wanted to come back quickly. Badminton, also it's been that scene. I think from where we look at today and say 2000 is one thing, but actually for me, those initial years, 89, 90, because after Prakash sir, there was actually a dip in the players. And 94, we didn't have a team going for Commonwealth. We didn't have, I remember even in 2002, after I won the Asian Games, I was alone as a member of the team. So I didn't have a coach or a physio. So I had Ashish, who was one of the star sports reporter then. He was my coach for a quarterfinal match at the games. And that is how things were even in 2002. Compare that to today, for what the government has done over the last, say, almost from 2007 onwards to the build-up to the 2010 games to now. I think phenomenal. I think whatever we've been asked, especially for the elite players, whatever we've been asked for has been given and more. I think that's something which the government has to get credit for, because they've given unreal support to the entire team for us. And today it almost seems, when we used to go, and I remember 91 when we went for the joke was morning show ya matinee, because all we could do was lose in the first round in the morning or in the afternoon. That is how things were, and all of us would lose in that initial day. And then we would start singing the praises of how good the Chinese were, how high they were jumping, how hard they were hitting, and how it's not possible for us to win. To today, you ask the under 15, under 17 team, and so ye to Korea ka ye isko maar lenge. That is the kind of general talk which they have. Whether we've been able to achieve that or not is secondary. But I think the general tendency is that these countries we can manage. And some of the big countries also, they talk in that tone. So that's the confidence which the players have, thanks to the performance of the players in the past. There's a lot more which we need to do.
And what are those challenges that lie ahead?
Systemic things. I think individually we've worked. We need to work together, because we are a big nation with different mindsets. And somebody to put all of those things in place is very, very important. We have individual academies, we have individual coaches, we have government schemes, we have associations, we have NGOs, we have corporates, we have universities, you have schools. All of them, how do you put them into one platform? And that is the biggest challenge. And for me, the last few years have been great, but it's just been the tip of the iceberg. And if we can manage these things well, and it's not easy to manage these things, I'm saying in the top 20, probably there's a day when there could be 10 Indians there. And that's actually our potential. And I believe it's possible, but we need to kind of work with a different mindset.
Wonderful. Thanks for that optimism, Gopi. Prakash sir, last word to you. 25 years now, landmark. But what next for PPBA and what next for Prakash Padukone?
Well, I hope we'll continue for at least another 25 years. Like Gopi said, I think it's very important that all the stakeholders in any sport come together, work together. Whether it is badminton, like you mentioned, all the different stakeholders, the government, the SAI, the government is doing a lot. I think especially since 2010, when the Commonwealth Games were held in Delhi, I think that I would probably consider that as the turning point for Indian sport, because it was held in Delhi. I think the budget increased, and since then the government, the SAI, and the sports ministry has done a lot, and especially for the priority sports, and given whatever they wanted. So there is no dearth of there has never been a dearth of talent in the country. If we've not been able to produce more champions, it was because of a lot of other factors, lack of funds. But I think even now that is taken care of. Infrastructure, good coaches, almost everything is there. And I think I tend to agree with Gopi that it's important that all the stakeholders come together. And if we work together, all the coaches, the players, the academies, the federation, the state associations, the ministry, the SAI, the foundations, I think the potential is tremendous, and the day will not be far off when we can definitely hope to get at least 10 to 20 medals in the Olympics. I think that will be the day I'm looking forward.
And how about what next for you?
Well, I think I've had a fairly long innings, satisfying innings. Like we've started, we can say, PPBA 2. So I think I would like to hand over, the reins to Vimal and Vivek. They'll hopefully come up with the good ideas. So I'll always be there to help and support them. And I look forward to the day when one of the trainees from here goes on to win an Olympic medal.
Wonderful. Thank you, all of you. It's been a lovely panel. Please wait up on stage. We have a couple of mementos to hand over to each of you.